Hello. I have been asked, how do I go about addressing a new turntable that I find? Something in the wild, and maybe it's a good deal at an estate sale or a yard sale or a flea market. And so the ultimate way to buy for me is to buy it at an estate sale where you know the history. This particular one, Realistic Lab 395, this was found at an estate sale. It was marked at $20. It was the last day of the sale, and so I bought it for 10. They were willing to cut the price in half. It was dirty. So anyway, I'm just going to walk through the procedures that I go through whenever I get one. First of all, why did I buy it? Well, I got it because it's a higher end Realistic. It's not super nice. We will see, but at least in its construction, it's not incredibly nice. I'm going to show you why in just a minute. But the platter is heavy aluminum, and it's got a curved tone arm, and that tone arm has a Shure 6X stylus on it. Counterweight back here, and by the way, a 6X stylus would have been a pretty good one, I think. My opinion. And then we have a counterweight and anti-skate control here. And so those things all stood out to me. Strobe over here with adjust. And I plugged it in and made sure that the platter was spinning so the motor was fine. It did. Weird though, really weird. Let me get this dust cover off. I just set the dust cover here to show you. I've got the hinges over here. And what was going on, the reason why I have it kind of apart is right in this area, there was oil. And it would look like 3-in-1 oil or something. And it was just all over this area. And I wasn't sure why. So I'm still not sure why, actually. But we'll explore that. So, but what is my procedure? That was the question. So we'll talk about the LAB-395. And we'll talk about my own personal procedure of whenever I get one of these, what I do. And so the very first thing that I do once I've made a purchase is I clean it. So this is the post cleaning. How do I clean it? Well, I take off the dust cover and I will wash it just like I would a dish in my house. So I wash it with warm soapy water and just scrub it out with a very soft cloth, usually something that's made out of cotton or a microfiber cloth. And then I wring out all the water, and while it's damp, I cover every little spot that I can. And that gets me close enough to where I feel like I'm ready to work on it. So that included me pulling off the dust cover. And it's scratched, man. You can see it's had some, well, what happened was probably somebody decided they didn't care about this turntable anymore, and they began to set things on it. And so it was a bummer. But I can polish a lot of that out. And so here was the turntable. This was pretty cruddy. It had some oil stains on it. And washing with soap and water is really the only way to get this oil off of it. And I knew I wanted to get that off anyway. This is a direct drive turntable, thus you don't see a belt underneath here. So I'm going to set this down in a safe area. And at that point, I can see this inside. What I did is mechanically by hand, this is before I bought it, I unlocked the tone arm, I lift the cue up, and I saw that it worked, moved it over, I hadn't plugged it in, and I just turned it by hand, and I wanted to see if that cam was going to move, and it moves just fine, and you can see it just moved the arm over. And if it did move the arm over, then what I would do is I'd bring it back over, and then I'd spin it a little bit here and hit the stop over here. So expect there to be some mechanical action. There was. And we should see that tone arm move back over into the home position. It just did. And if I let the cue down, it should drop. So to do a better test here, I guess I can bring this over. I do have the stylus protector over on here. I can turn this a little bit here, hit the stop, and then we should be able to see the tone arm lift, which it just did, and then bring it over, and then it should set it down. So Mechanically, it wasn't broken or messed up. The motor did spin, turned a platter. It just made sense to pay a whopping $10 for this thing. So what I've done since, besides just the wipe down, is prepare this so I can shoot a short video. I went ahead and set the weight on the tone arm. The stylus weight for the Shure stylus that's on there is between 1 and 1.5, I think, grams is what I looked up. And then I looked up just a little bit about this particular turntable to kind of find out what year it was. And so this is what I have here. This is the catalog from 1982. And this catalog has, on the front cover, it has this very turntable. And they have it priced out as a complete system at $679. And that's saving $200. Cassette deck, amplifier, receiver, and then a couple very small speakers. But the turntable itself is found on page 21, thanks to some forums that I ran into, and we see it right there. So it's the LAB-395. It includes, in this case, a realistic, and then it says Shure R47 EDT. Now, that's interesting because if we look right here, I think if I can get enough light on it, we'll see that is the one, I believe. Hard to make out here, but let me see if I can get focus. Pretty confident this is all stock, which means it's probably going to sound terrible and require a replacement. And it may not. It may be they just didn't play this thing very much. They bought it and they just didn't play it. But you can see the original price was $169. But now by this time, the LAB-400 was done. That would have been the higher end, or 500. Instead, they have a 440, and that one would not be a wooden veneered cabinet. Instead, it's going to be vinyl veneered, I'm pretty certain. All those this late in the models would have it had a veneer. That would be a nice one to get. But that one is pretty nice too, I think. We shall see. So what's wrong with it? Well, whenever the platter was on here, and I just set the force here on the tone arm and on the stylus, I went over here to the platter, turned it on, and I did a speed test. And my speed test wouldn't reach 33, but the button works fine, but it wouldn't reach 45. So I know I'm going to have to deox this. That's kind of to be expected, and I was going to do it anyway. So I'm going to pause this for a sec. I'm going to take off the bottom and let's have a look at it underneath. So underneath, it's a little bit revealing here. We have the foot that's been taped up, but that's not even a foot. I think that is a 45 RPM adapter, which, you know, kudos for being a little innovative there, but really, come on. You can see the feet are on here. This is not some sort of very nice suspended shock absorption system, which is really a shame. We have this little plate here that it looks like a user or somebody could get into and remove this and get into it, but what would they be getting into it for? So I'm going to try one-handed here to get this down. Hang on a second. All right, now we can see inside. So the only thing that they can access is the transformer and then this motor control board in removing that plastic plate, which is interesting as to why you would ever need to. I don't know. Maybe there's some assumptions there. I don't have any offhand as to why that would be. But anyway, we can see the mechanical parts of this. We see where our audio comes out. It comes right out of the tone arm here, and it just goes right into this little board and out. So there's not anything happening in here to the sound. So whenever I plug this up, we have a bit of a hum even after I grounded this. So why would we have a hum? And that may relate to a ground issue here, but that's solid. So I'm going to have, maybe it's not solid here on that post right up there. That's what I'm going to have to look into right up in there. But anyway, mechanically we see it, and now we can clean it. So what I may do, next step would be check and see just how cruddy any of this stuff is in here. And if it's gummed up or anything, then maybe jump in and do some lubrication with some white lithium grease in this area, plastic on plastic or on metal. But it's actually maneuverable. It's very decent. Now down here we have the motor control board here, and this small, it's actually the small controller here, and then we have the motor itself. So here's our variable speed, and that's where we have our problem. So the goal is to get inside that potentiometer and then shoot it with some deox and really just run the heck out of it. Interesting here, this is our speed selector, 45 or 33, and we can be pretty confident that that is absolutely micro switchable. It's not mechanical, right? Because we see wires coming out of it. So that little feller there might need a little deox too. Even though it's working now while I have it open, might as well get into it. So it looks like I got 1 screw, 2 screws, and then ready to just shoot some deox and just rotate the heck out of this and click this in and out a few times. And that should do it. We have a little neon strobe down in here, which is going to run off of this circuit, which is covered, protected probably because of voltage. And as I look over the cardboard, it appears like, can't really see, honestly. Can't really see what's going on. But we don't care, because honestly, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. That's my, actually, it's not my approach. That's my recommended approach. That's the approach that I teach in the school that I teach at, the college. But I'm so curious, right? Curiosity is where we get into learning. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, let's dig inside and see what's going on. So I don't know, for just to test this thing out and get it to work, I'm just going to focus on this right here. Also, in some cases, and this is one where I can rub down in here, and I don't know, it isn't dirty, it doesn't feel dirty, but if I look around, it looks like it has like a haze on it, like it's dirty. So I don't know, in rare cases I might even wash this thing. But let's face it, it's not a high-end turntable, is it? I mean, it appears like it is, but this plastic shell, which is, it's got some weight to it for, you know, being what it is, but it's not as heavy and meaty as so many of those turntables that you really desire. So anyway, plus this whole idea of suspending it on this fiberboard with, this is rubberized for a foot. This one's completely missing over here. I think there are some things that you could do here if you had old turntable parts that you could get into and really give this some shock absorption. But again, we're going to mess with this, you know, this palette that we have. So I'm going to get this out, deox, and then I'll be back. Okay, now with a little more light on and with this off, we can see the micro switch here. And so the shoot point is probably going to be right in here where you see this copper. And then I'll flip this over and we can see the little potentiometer that we need to get into here. Now, where the 3 fingers come up there from the pot, that's where we want to get into. So my goal is going to be to get this in focus, and then we're going to shoot for getting that right down into its crack. It's not going to be a problem because we've got that plastic nozzle right there that we can get right up in there. So I'm going to give it a shot there. I usually shoot on one side and rotate a bunch of times, and then I shoot over here on the other side. So I'll come down at this angle right into the little gap in there, and then I'll rotate it a bunch of times. Then I'll come over here and I'll shoot where I told you on the opposite side, right into that copper, and I'll click this a whole bunch of times. I got a rubbing alcohol dipped Q-tip. You can see it kind of leaking out on that paper towel. Paper towel's there to just kind of grab any deox that comes flying into areas I don't want it to. But anyway, I'm going to clean up the dust underneath this button just to make it look a little bit better. And that's what I'll do there. Be back in just a sec. Okay, I've given a little bit of a shot down in there. Actually, I went left side, rotated about 10 times, right side, rotated about 10 times, went over and did the micro switch right where I told you I would. And then I gave it the old clicky click there several times. And you can actually see some of the deox spray coming out because I flipped it over. So that means I've saturated it plenty. Now this was fine, so I didn't really notice any improvement with the clickiness of it, but this almost immediately you can feel that it moves much better. So right before I wrap it up here, I'm going to give it one more little shot, the tiniest little shots ever. That's a very small potentiometer, and give one more down in the middle, and then I will I'll rotate it about 10 more times, and then I'm going to button this part up. Now, the real test here, from here on, having squared this away, the real test now is to just see if we got our speed working right. So that's our next goal. I'm just going to slide this thing on, and then I'm going to lay it down on its side, or on its bottom properly. And then I'm going to do some speed tests, and I'll show you that. But I'm thinking already, where else might I need to get into? Well, mechanically, like I said, it seems to be working fine, so I might be able to clean up if it feels gooey or whatever. Like I can feel it. If it feels exceptionally dry, I might want to put a little bit of lithium grease. Basically, on anything that's sliding back and forth, sliding back and forth. You don't want to overdo it, just a little dab will do it. If there's any residual junk, a lot of times you see some of these with a reddish or brownish goo, and it's hardened. You got to get all that out with rubbing alcohol, Q-tips, and then lube it back gently with some white lithium grease. And I get that in a spray can, actually. I don't prefer it that way because it's quite abrupt when it comes flying out. It's a little bit too much, and there's some cleanup to do. But I use Q-tips to apply it where I want it to go. But I'm thinking about the little strobe, which is going to bring light into it there and reflect. And if I really care about this thing, I might take that apart, clean it up, and make it look really pretty. But for now, let's do a speed test. So all I'm going to do is just slide this bottom back up in here. I'm going to lay it down, and I'm going to do a speed test, which I'll show you in about 2 seconds. Okay, now I've got the app running on my main phone that I use. And you can see if I turn it by hand, we're going to get some numbers. So I haven't tested anything before I'm shooting this. So let's go. We'll see what happens. I'm going to queue up. Boy, that sucker just jams. Then I'm going to bring it over just enough so that table starts turning. Already I can see I'm above 33. Oh, I must have had a stop button depression here. That's good. That's good. We know that's working just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that tone arm over, get that turntable moving again. And now I'm actually on 33, so we see here the depress button here. And let's see if we can dial this down now. Actually, I'm going to go both ways. I'm at 31. I'm going to crank the other way. I'm at 35. So that's pretty much where we want to be for 33 and a third. We want to have not this crazy range. We want to be able to dial it in. And right here, we're going to have this oblong, we're going to have a speed up, slow down because of that it's not a balanced weight that's on there, and that phone's kind of heavy. But right in there looks pretty good. So let's see what our strobe is looking like. And if we look, we can see our lines. We're looking at the next from the bottom line, 60 hertz for 33. It looks to me like it's fairly solid but drifting. So let's see if we can bring that back a little bit. Going the wrong way. Removing the adjust. Okay. So our hope now is that it stays put. So let's just see if we can do a start-stop test here. For the app, I'm going to hit start, and then it says queue up. So I'm going to move it over, get it rolling, and let's see what it comes out to be. So the test starts now, and it won't take long, just a few seconds. And again, we know that we have an out of balance phone, a heavy phone there. So I'm gonna bring it over, and our measurement was 33.3. That's pretty darn good. So let's go to 45 now with no adjustment. This is a good test because at 45, do we need to make any slight pitch adjustments, or will it absolutely be 45? My guess is it will not be 45. So let's do a reset here and restart this test at 45. Move tone arm over. Here we go. And I'm actually shocked. While it's registering, let's take a look at the strobe. We're looking at the bottom now, and that bottom looks pretty solid. Now, every time it goes a lap around with that phone, it tends to wiggle to the left. But anyway, how did our test result come out? 45.02. Wow, that's amazing. So deox here was really all that was needed. Went ahead and hit this button a little bit, but deoxing this, going back and forth, that solved all of the speed problems, we think. Time to put a mat on, time to, tracking force should be the same as it was whenever I just adjusted it. I will tell you already, I'm really concerned about the angle of this head because it is cocked like this, very strangely. I'm going to assume, wrongly I'm sure, that that's not right, but I'm going to go ahead and put a mat on here, and I'm on 45, so maybe I'll throw a 45 on it first and just see how it sounds with this original stylus. Okay, I have turned the amp up a little bit and I'm hearing a hum at a rather low voltage. I know I've got, oh, I can hear it. I can hear it give me a little feedback on my finger, but mercy, we got hum. And it's a 60 hertz tone. I'm grounded over here, so that's not it. Unless this wire, well, if I take it off, it's a very pronounced hum. So this wire, is it broken somewhere inside here? Who knows? Gosh, I don't want to run a separate ground. I could. Maybe I need to replace these entirely. That's not terrible to do. But it could be here in the head, and I mean, it's an original piece here, so this may need to be taken apart and reloaded. I hate the angle of this thing. It just can't be right. But let's just drop it and see what happens and what it sounds like. This is Love Is Like Oxygen by Sweet. This is this was a new piece of vinyl, and I got it as a potential reject from the pressing plant. It's some guy that had a lot of junk that he didn't need. I'm getting some vibration out of that thing, and look, you see it wobbling. So that's the problem with that. These were reject pressing, so I guess it's absolutely off center on the pressing. But let's hear this. Do we have anything? Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Noisy. I hear almost nothing. So we got problems, Houston. Let's bring that up. Boy, look at that bounce up high. So much pressure. So I don't know what we're going to do. I'm going to take this apart next, and I'm going to just see what's going on with connections and see if I can do something with it. But at this point, we know that we have resolved the problem here, and now the problem must, and we saw how simple the wiring is. The problem must now be somewhere between here and here. And this amp, everything, this is my test amp. It's Pioneer, and I use it all the time to test right here at this bench, various turntables. So it's a known good amp, known good connections for phono. Problems gotta be down in here.